Newell is an online Christian counseling organization. We utilize the Thrive model in our counseling. The Thrive model stands for togetherness, holiness, relevance, integration, vision, and expectancy.
So the process starts with you reaching out and us making contact with you, connecting, and walking through that process of hearing what you need and connecting you with the right counselor.
Pricing, and we have a sliding scale, so we do try to meet people as best we can with what they can afford.
This is not just about abundance for you individually, but about the abundance I believe you can create in the atmosphere around you, regardless of how you live your life.
So sometimes when we address one area of life, others begin to fall into place.
Right.
Hello, and welcome to this powerful little session on taking the tension out of triggers. I am Janell Rardon. I'm so happy to have you with me here today. This will be short and sweet and quick, but you can read more about this in my newest book, Stronger Every Day, in Tool 6. And this is 9 tools for an emotionally healthy you. What is a trigger? Well, there are 2 words that come to mind immediately when I think of the word trigger: automatic and reactions. Triggers activate in our limbic system, in our amygdala, 2 little almond shapes that exist within our emotional center. And that's where our survival mechanism is, our fight, flight, freeze, or our fawn. And that's a reactory mode. And we don't want to move through our life out of our amygdala. So it's very important that we consolidate any memory that has a negative connotation connected to it. So you're going to hear a lot about this tool of memory reconsolidation because it allows new, healthy, positive messages to activate in our brain. What happens when we consolidate a negative narrative or a negative memory? We make peace with it, we make sense of it, and then it hops back into our hippocampus, which is the filing cabinet in our brain, and then it just becomes part of our history of hurts, is what I call it. And we're no longer triggered by it. We're just aware and attuned, and we can go, oh, that's just part of my story. So a trigger is a stimulus, right? It activates. It's something that goes off inside of us that elicits unhealthy emotional reactions, and that leads to even more unhealthy outcomes. Of course, there are positive triggers like the smell of sugar cookies. Perhaps it takes you back to Christmas and baking with grandma. That's what it does for me. But today, for the sake of this time we're together, we're going to be talking and focusing on negative triggers. Those things that really set us back or shut us down or keep us locked in a prison of negativity. And none of us want to live that way. We want to live a life of emotional health and freedom and wholeheartedness. A trigger will set off a memory tape. Sometimes it is a moving picture or a flashback, and that transports you back into the event of that original trauma. Triggers are very, very, very personal, and they increase emotional insecurity, and they are activated through our 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste, and they are unconscious. They're stored typically in our subconscious. So something that happened to us perhaps even before we were 2 or 3 years old that was very jarring, very traumatic, it will be stored in that subconscious inside of that amygdala. And it is why we're here today, so that we can deactivate it. There is this new phenomenal field of psychological study called epigenetics. And it's a study that uncovers the roots or chains of our pain so that the present generation may be healed and future generations might not be impacted. This has been my whole calling in my life. My husband and I both came from very dysfunctional, alcoholic homes, different scenarios in each. So we brought a melting pot of dysfunction into our lives when we got married, but we made a firm commitment to stand in the gap, to fight the war, to stop the sins of the fathers from the 3rd and 4th generations from going into our next generation. I have fought so hard and prayed and interceded and done deep emotional work through therapy and coaching and spiritual direction, my husband as well. And I just this past year had 2 grandbabies. And so when I held them, I just prayed that prayer over them, that their lives are going to be so fully blessed with freedom and emotional health. Trauma and emotional DNA, it is passed down. It's proven. I just quoted even from the Bible where it says the sins of the father are passed on to the third and fourth generations. And it has a huge impact on how that expression of our genes plays out. So if you want more on this, go ahead and grab Stronger Every Day, Tool 6, and a book that has been a tremendous help to me, which I put the picture here, is Mark Wolyn's tremendous book, It Didn't Start With You. Triggers happen. They do. But I want to encourage you that if you do this work, they won't. They will be part of your history and your story. And you will have emotional health instead. You will have a response instead of a reaction. So we want to take the tension out of these triggers. Let's face it, they happen. Conflict happens, especially in emotionally charged circumstances. In extreme times, triggers occur and defense mechanisms are activated. So a secondary part of our time here together is to help us identify, perhaps, a coping or defense mechanism that we picked up along our life, somewhere along our life. And that's usually going to be wrapped in tension and armed for a fight, either verbally, hurtful and hateful, or non-verbally, silent and unsafe. So I love this beautiful illustration on our internal world. 90% of our happiness lies in how our brain processes the world. That's why you're here, isn't it? Here to learn more about what's going on inside of your brain so that you can live a meaningful, happy life. Your external world only predicts 10% of your happiness. Now that's something to be talked about. In Tool 3, in my book, Stronger Every Day, in Tool 3, I talk all about cognitive reframing. So that's that secondary piece of this taking the tension out of triggers, is to understand why we're reacting like we are, and that's in our defense mechanism. So I offer you something called heart lifting. It's the heart of what I do. I call myself a professional heart lifter, actually. This mental gym, these workouts for your brain that will help reframe cognitive distortions. That's our third layer here. Thinking, some people call this. So let's say you have a trigger event. The nonverbal cues of ignoring, detachment, a lack of concern, that makes you get angry. Your automatic thought is, how dare he or she? Well, doesn't that ring of entitlement? Isn't the customer always king? This comes from a story that I have in my book. I was going through a checkout line in a big box store after church, and the woman was so cruel to me. She was just mean. I don't even know what was going on, but I got super angry at her lack of attention and her nonverbal cues. But then I reframed that thought right there in the minute. And I thought, there's more to this than meets the eye. There's something going on in this woman. I'm triggering her, or else she's just in a really bad place. It's not personal. So keep that here while we continue. There was no eye contact. There was a disgusted look on her face. Well, I reacted out of my cognitive distortion, my coping mechanism of personalization and emotionalism. Personalization is, I take everything in life personal. It's my fault. I must have done something wrong. Daddy drinks because I'm not a good girl, or he doesn't love me. And then I get super emotional. So my automatic thought in that was, what did I do to this woman? She doesn't like me. Stop thinking about yourself, Janell. You're so selfish. But I reframed that in my new, beautiful way of thinking. Don't personalize everything, Janell. Everything isn't always your fault. Use emotion regulation here and breathe. This isn't about you. So the third trigger event was I felt invisible. I felt unliked. It really triggered avoidance and repression. And so my automatic thought was, don't address this, be nice, people are watching, it's no big deal, get over yourself. Reframed my thought with, let the woman have a bad day, she isn't hurting me, and pray for her. So as I said, this is going to be a quick run through, but you can come back to this over and over again and take notes and really take it to heart. So cognitive distortions, we have just learned, especially if we've experienced any kind of trauma, little t, middle T, or big T trauma, maladaptive ways of thinking, those cognitive distortions, that's thinking. They're often subconscious, like I said. So practicing awareness is first line of defense is to be aware, to watch your life and go, oh, I'm doing it again. Like after that situation, I came home and I really thought about it because I was on my own emotional healing journey. And I thought, I don't want to go through life like that anymore. I don't want those situations to deplete my emotional energy for the rest of the day. So cognitive distortion, here are a few cognitive distortions. The assumer. We think we know what someone else is thinking. She thinks I'm stupid. They don't like me. The magnifier. Blow things way out of proportion. Emotional hyperbole. My husband bounced a check. Our credit rating is completely ruined. You go from here, 0 to 100. The shrinker. This is the denial of how something affects us. Whew. It's really not a big deal. So many people have it worse than me. My story is silly compared to the suffering of others. If I had $1 for every time I have heard that in my practice, I really would be a very rich woman. And I always say, listen, this is your story. Yes, maybe somebody else has had it far worse, but this is your story. And we're here to reframe your story. This is personal and it's about you in this space. The generalizer, just conclusion based on 1 or 2 events that are then taken as a universal law. I was emotionally wounded in a church setting. Okay, so now if I'm a generalizer, all churches are unsafe. I can't ever go back to church. Universal statements include words all, never, everyone, always. For example, you never answer my texts. You always do that. Well, is that really true? Maybe someone doesn't ever answer your text. Okay, that might be true, but that is where you want to understand it's not personal. And even if it is, you want to come to that safe, healthy, secure space inside of yourself where you're okay. The black and white thinker, thinking in absolutes. Either I do it right or I don't do it at all. An absolute thinker is also someone who it's either or, not both and. If I failed once, I'm going to fail again. I will always fail. I burned the first meal in my marriage, therefore I'm a terrible cook and an even more terrible wife. Woo. And here are some more. I'm not going to take the time to read through all of them because you can do that on your own. Come back, revisit this. The judger, shoulding everyone. Shouldaology, I call it. The personalizer, I've already shared, we just take everything personal. The discounter, seeing only the negative and discounting anything positive. Well, we all do that in some respect because we have a negative bias in our brain. The labeler, applying words or phrases onto others and believing those words or phrases placed on us by others. She's the messy daughter. He doesn't know how to tell time. She's always late. He was the class clown. You know those labels. I know you do. And the emotionalist said, that's what I do. I allow emotions to rule my perceptions and interpretations. I'm working and developing more strong tools to help me with that. So we want to be out with the old and in with the new, right? We want our old narratives, our fixed mindset, to now transform into a growth mindset and a new narrative. So this is another example from my own life. You can fill out this chart for yourself. My old narrative is Little Miss People Pleaser. And then I became Little Miss Church Pleaser and Little Mommy Pleaser. and little wife pleaser. What do I do with that? My new narrative, my prophetic footing that I stand on is Proverbs 31:25. I, Janell Rardon, am clothed in strength and dignity. I can smile at my future because I've nothing to fear. A second old narrative, I want everyone to like me, and I'll do whatever it takes to make someone like me, even if it causes me great distress and dis-ease. So, like I just said, my new narrative is I am clothed in God's strength and dignity, and now I accept, love, and value that God breathed me. It's impossible to please everyone. Go ahead and take those 2 spots to write your own. I really wish we could talk about it, but if you want to, you can hop over to janellrardon.com or heartliftcentral.com and send me a message. So I just want to leave with one simple grounding exercise. Now, I utilize a beautiful therapeutic grade essential oil. It is curated by Young Living, who promises us and guarantees us that it is seed to seal, and it is. And I have friends that have been to the farms and seen it. And so I only use this high grade therapeutic oil. And this oil is called Envision. And you can learn all about that on heartliftcentral.com. And about, 2019, about 3 years ago, I learned about this incredible new healing modality. It's revolutionary. It's only about 6 years old. And it was developed by a licensed psychologist, Dr. Benjamin Perkis. And I am a certified practitioner in this now, went through the training for that. And if you would like this little booklet, once again, just visit Heartlift Central. So this is a simple grounding exercise to help you as you're beginning to increase your awareness and beginning to be attuned to knowing how to tame these triggers, take the tension out of them. This is just a mindful breath affirmation. I love this so much. So when the trigger reaction begins, identify it, okay? I'll go back to the woman at the cashier. I can still see her. She had on a bright pink breast cancer shirt. So that was also a little hint that maybe she was going through something really hard. And so we want to begin to manage trigger reactions with that threefold chord of contemplative practices: silence, stillness, and solitude. And one mindful way to stay focused and in this prefrontal, this place in the front of our mind where we reason, where we have our reasoning capacity, is to prepare and store breathing practices into our soul's memory. So simply, you're just going to go, my mind is relaxed. My body is relaxed. Now, this aroma freedom technique has proven that our olfactory bulb is right here, and it links immediately within seconds to our amygdala. So it takes the trigger and causes it to rest immediately. I've seen it happen thousands of times. So it's useful without, but it is more useful with. So you're just going to breathe in and breathe out. Breathing in the oil to whatever's causing you stress, anxiety, heightened hypervigilance. My mind is relaxed, my body is calm. And you will do that over and over again until you feel the calm. A second grounding one is just called square breathing. And this begins by placing a hand over your heart and one hand over your solar plexus. And if you can, go ahead and tuck it under your shirt, right over your belly button, right where your solar plexus is. And using that high quality therapeutic grade essential oil like lavender or vanilla or this Envision will help diffuse any trigger immediately. It's like the bomb squad. It takes practice. So you're just going to put your hand over your heart and over your gut and breathe in 4 and breathe out 4. You can add thoughts like, Excuse me. I will get through this like I do every time. Take deep breaths. I am loved. I am safe. I'm protected. This will soon pass and I will feel happy again. This is not forever or constant. I am not my anxiety. Speaking affirming, healing words immediately calms down your sympathetic nervous system and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and everything just calms down. It does. One of my most favorite is all is well and I am at peace. I've done this in grocery store lines, at the deli counter, in the doctor's office. For more, please visit heartliftcentral.com. It has been an honor to be with you. Peace.
Thanks so much for listening to this presentation of Voices of Hope. We're thrilled to be providing this conference and the resources it has to offer. Fresh Hope for Mental Health is a faith-based mental health ministry offering support groups, free resources, and effective ministry programs, which are all based upon 25 years of clinical research. Support includes faith-based mental health support groups for adults and teens, both locally and online, trauma healing groups, hope coaching, a retreat for pastors and ministry leaders to process the wounds of ministry, plus help for widows. Fresh Hope also helps churches implement effective mental health ministries within their local settings and communities. You might say that Fresh Hope is a plug-and-play ministry for churches to embed into their ministry. Visit freshhope.us to find out more.